buildings. There is no planned fire evacuation drill or alarm test today. If the fire alarm is activated during your visit, you must exit the building immediately. The council officers will direct you to the nearest fire exit and will escort visitors to the main building fire assembly point beside the Silver Man at the top of Parliament's Walk. Phil Craig staff should report to their floor's assembly point. You should remain at your assembly point until directed to reoccupy the building and only re-enter once the fire marshal has advised it's safe to do so. Please do not attempt to leave the site by vehicle until cleared to do so by the fire marshal to ensure access routes are kept clear for emergency vehicles. Please note that this is a public meeting and that members of the public may be in attendance. The meeting will be recorded by the clerk and published online for public viewing. The taking of photographs, including screenshots, audio or video recordings are not permitted during meetings unless with the express permission of the chair. Can members attending virtually activate the cameras where possible to enable you to join by video, and can all attendees mute their microphones when not speaking? Please do not come in during items unless I invite you to do so. If members attending virtually wish to speak at any point, please indicate by clicking on the raise your hand button. Members in the chamber should also raise their hand and I will bring in appropriate time. The members have not been able to access all papers for the meeting, please indicate. Today we will hear each of the items set out on the agenda. I will invite the officers to present the paper and members will then have the opportunity to ask questions before we proceed to debate and decision. So I'll ask the clerk to know who's in attendance and if there's any substitutions.
We have apologies from Councillor Coyne, Councillor Keogh, Councillor Quinn and Councillor Forson, with Councillor Harrison as substitution for Councillor Forson.
We have a potential change to the paper order today. So before we move to substantive business, I propose a change of an order of the agenda items relating to internal audit. Having considered the structure and flow of the reports and in discussion with internal audit and the clerk, I'm exercising my discretion under Standing Order 10.5 to amend the order in which these items will be taken. The revised order will be item 9, internal audit strategy and internal audit charter. Item 8, internal audit progress report. Item 7, internal audit plan. Item 6, internal audit annual assurance report. This change reflects the nature of the papers. The strategy and charter is a standalone report linked to compliance with the global internal audit standards. The remaining reports then follow a logical sequence: progress to date, forward planning, and finally the audit assurance opinion. Reordering the items in this way will provide a clearer narrative for members and reduce perceived duplication. Are there any objections to that change? No. Okay, we'll proceed on that basis. Thank you. Can I ask if MD would like to declare an interest today? Oh, okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the first item of business, which is the minutes of the last meeting. So I'll go through each page. So page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, and page 12. You all okay with these minutes? Yeah. Yes, thank you. Moving on to item 4, which is Council Financial Performance 25-26 as at March 2026, and that will be Wednesday 7th. Wednesday.
Thank you. Good morning. So this paper provides an update on the financial performance for the Council for the year ending 31st of March 2026, based on actual spend up to the end of March. Members are asked to note that these figures are draft and will be confirmed following completion of the external audit process of the 25-26 annual accounts. General Fund Revenue Account is reporting an underspend of 3.6 million for the year after earmarking of reserves. This is a positive outcome in line with the planned strategy to generate an underspend in the year to support reserves. A further 3.2 million has been added to committed reserves for use in future years. A summary of the outturn position across directorates is provided in Appendix 1, and full detailed spend by service area is provided in Appendices 3 to 6. In respect of earmarked reserves, 4.5 million has been allocated against spend incurred in the year, leaving a closing balance of 12.2 million. Following the request from the committee at its last meeting, a full list of earmarked reserves is included in Appendix 9. The Quack Manager element of the Health and Social Care Partnership is outturning an overspend for the year of 6.3 million, which is 110,000 less than previously forecast. The overall outturn position for the partnership is not yet known, and any additional contribution from the Council will be confirmed once this has been prepared. Detail of spend against budget is shown in Appendix 7. The General Fund Capital Programme is outturning an underspend of 9.6 million across various projects against a revised budget of 36.5 million, which is an increase of 2.2 million on the Q3 outturn. Of the underspend, 9.2 million is proposed to be carried forward into 26-27 to allow completion of projects. A summary of the forecast per asset plan is provided at section 6.3 of the report, and detail by project is provided in Appendix 8. In relation to savings, the Council has achieved 85% of the savings, of that 3.2 million of the approved 3.8 million. Any unachieved savings will continue to be pursued during 26-27 or alternatives identified. Details of the individual savings are included in Appendix 2 of the report. So I'm happy, along with colleagues, to take any questions on the paper.
Thanks, Lindsay. Do we have any questions? Okay. Councillor Harrison.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, Lindsay. Just a quick question on the capital underspend. You're saying that it gets carried forward into future year per project, and I know there's a capital group. Do we look at ways that we could potentially spend that by moving orders of projects? So rather than just carrying forward into future years, do we look at what projects could be taken up, and potentially, as we get towards the end of the financial year, potentially spend some of that money on other projects?
Thank you. Yes, when we look at the budget setting for the next year, so we start that around October, we are reviewing the outturn position, so we take into account any underspend on projects at that time, and we look to see if there's a way that when we're looking at that money, if we're rephasing into future years, if there are any projects that maybe we want to reorder or bring forward, or they're running quicker, a quicker pace than anticipated, we can look to do that. So that the Capital Operations Group, now reformed as Capital Programme Board, has that on their agenda. And we do have one project that was as a multi-year project that has been a quicker pace than we'd expected. So we have spent more in this financial year and less in the next financial year. So we have the ability to do that. And it's within directors, project holders' gift to put those proposals forward. So we look at it in the round.
Thanks.
Councillor L, could you put your camera on, please? So we're all here. Just for us to be for it, Councillor L, could you put your camera on? Just steps away. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Kenny. Lindsay, in terms of, obviously, you've mentioned that it's a planned underspend that we have each year. Is that to ensure that we've got a robust reserves position, just in case of any contingencies, or is there a reason for that planned reserve?
Thank you. Yeah, so a couple of years ago now, when we were looking at our financial position over the longer term, we put in the mitigations around essential spend and recruitment to critical posts only. And we've continued that because of the recurring additional pressures and uncertainty that we're seeing over the past few years. And the Health and Social Care Partnership is one of those pressures that is sort of out with the Council's control in terms of the spend. So there's additional contributions that are being asked for from the Council for that. So yes, it's a planned strategy that we've put in place to try and boost our reserves as we go forward over the longer term, and to make sure we have funds in reserve if there are any unforeseen pressures that come in the year. Like we have an ongoing example of that for this current financial year, which we do need to fund by reserves.
Thanks so much for the breakdown on the table of the kind of earmark reserves, which we asked for and you've provided. And I know there's probably a lot of work to pull that together, so thank you. I just wanted to ask, there was some there that I noticed that I potentially thought maybe had carried forward for quite a number of years. And I wondered if there's the opportunity for some of those. I was thinking maybe with Ukrainian refugees and aspects like that, whether they'll still be spent, whether they have to be returned if they're not spent, or whether they can be repurposed. Not, I'm just picking that one out, but there's a number that fall into that category.
Thank you. Yes, again, a number of these are multi-year funding. So the Ukrainian one you reference is a multi-year funding. We need to go back to the terms and conditions around that to see if it states if any unspent funds were needing to be repaid. But that one is a long-standing project. So with each of these, we do review them at least annually, and we do look at the terms and conditions around them. So if they're not spent within a specific timescale, then we may need to give them back, or we have that ability to carry them forward. As I said, some of them are multi-year projects, again, that we're just carrying forward.
Okay, thanks, Lindsay. That's all for me. Anybody else want to plan, question-wise? No? Okay, thank you. I'm happy to move this paper. And again, thank you, Lindsay, for the level of detail that you provided for us. That's extremely helpful for the committee to see that. So we really appreciate it. And we know that the level of work that goes into, particularly all the different categories of spend, there's loads of work that goes into that. And, you know, looking at the savings and so on. So we really appreciate that. So thank you. So happy to move. Could I have a seconder, please? Martha, thanks, Councillor Berry. We're open to debate. Would anybody like to debate the paper? No, happy to note the paper. Yeah, okay. Move on to item 5. HRA financial performance 25-26 as at March 2026. You again, Lindsay.
Thank you. This paper provides an update on the financial performance for the housing revenue account for the year ended 31st of March 2026, based on actual spend up to the end of March. As with the General Fund outturn report, members are asked to note that these figures are draft and will be confirmed following completion of the external audit process of the 25-26 annual accounts. The revenue section of the housing revenue account is reporting a surplus of 6.4 million, which is 1.8 million greater than budgeted, and an increase of 11,000 from that reported at Q3. The main driver of this underspend and movement continues to be within staffing costs due to vacancies and related underspends in supplies and services as projects are not able to be progressed. This is partly offset by overspends within third-party payments as contractors are being used to support service delivery. Detail of the over and underspends by subjective area are provided in Appendix 1. The capital programme is reporting an underspend of 6.3 million across various projects. Over half of the underspend is attributable to the projects at Lockheys Road, off-the-shelf purchases and roof and render upgrades. Members are asked to note that many of the projects are multi-year and will continue into the next year. As such, 5.7 million of the underspend is proposed to be carried forward into 26-27 to allow these projects to be progressed. Any surplus is taken into account when setting the rent levels for the forthcoming year. The report provides a summary of the main projects contributing to the underspend, and detail by project is provided in Appendix 2. Again, happy with colleagues to take any questions on the paper.
Thanks, Lindsay. Do we have any questions? Councillor Benny.
Thank you. Thanks for that. It's just, I'm not the job, sorry. Yeah, I wasn't doing the wrong thing. The Lockheys, just you mentioned the Lockheys part of the underspend. Have we got that still running, or is it been stuck for some reason as an underspend? Sorry.
My understanding is the project has been paused at the moment, but I'll just ask Kevin if he can provide any more detail.
Through the chair, and thank you, Councillor Benny, for the question. The Lockheys project has had a bit of a interesting journey, I think it's best to say, where it was originally planned to go alongside the West Hall programme. As you may recall from previous reports at this committee and to council, that there was challenges with the tier one contractor done through Hubco, and they went into administration, and therefore we had to retender. The two projects decoupled, and West Hall progressed first, and we are now in a position where we're starting to progress Lockheed. So we have retained the money that was planned for that particular project and carried it forward. I'm anticipating that that'll start to spend this year.
Thank you.
Yeah, Lindsay, you mentioned there, and I appreciate you mentioning it in terms of some of the amounts have been carried forward into the next year, and they're taken into account in the rent review. And I think that's an important distinction. So just to clarify that when we are increasing rents each year, and then obviously our constituents may see that there's an underspend, and they would worry that the money on the rent is not being spent on the repairs that they're looking for. I just wanted to ask you, are you able to confirm that that will be taken into account?
Yes, that's right. So any surplus on the housing revenue account is completely ring fenced to the housing revenue account. It can't be spent by the council or in any other way. So the projects that we've got in place, the projects still continue in the next year. So any surplus or underspend is rolled forward to still fund those projects. So it's any new projects that come on board will need to be funded by additional rents. So we take into account the underspend on the housing revenue account and what reserves they have first before we work out what the potential rent levels need to be to fund any additional work that we have in the capital programme for future years and any increases in inflation.
Thanks very much. Any other questions? No. Okay, thank you. So I'm happy to move the paper. Again, thank you for the work that's gone into that from all teams. In terms of what was really useful for me was to see the context. So when there was work that hadn't completed, it was really useful to see why the work hadn't completed and what the context of that was, so that we weren't just seeing there was a big underspend and then not knowing why. So that was really helpful. So thank you. So happy to move. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Benny. We're open to debate. Would anyone like to debate the paper? No, we're happy to note the paper. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So we are now, as we mentioned in the change of the agenda, we're now moving on to item 9, which is internal audit strategy and internal audit charter. And that will be Sarah McPhee. Sarah's online, I think.
Sorry, yes. Thank you very much for amending the order on the agenda. It's very much appreciated. This report from Internal Audit today seeks approval on the new internal audit strategy and an updated internal audit charter. Section 3 outlines the requirements of part of the global internal audit standards, and paragraphs 4.1 to 4.4 provide the details on the preparation of an internal audit strategy as part of the global internal audit standards. The strategy can be found at Appendix 1. Paragraphs 4.5 to 4.7 have set out the requirements in relation to the internal audit charter, which can also be found at Appendix 2. Both documents have already been shared with the senior leadership group and the Audit and Scrutiny Committee members to ensure they reflect their understanding and expectations of the internal audit function, with only minor amendments having been made as a result. In conclusion, both of the documents have developed in line with the global internal audit standards requirements. The new internal audit strategy sets out the vision, objectives, and supporting initiatives of the Council internal audit function for the period 26 to 29. The internal audit charter sets out the role, authority, and responsibility of the internal audit team, provides a high-level framework within the team and how they operate. And apologies for that interruption then.
Thanks very much. Open to questions. Anybody like to ask any questions? No, I mean, thank you, Sarah. That's really comprehensive and very, I mean, we appreciate sight of this before so that we're able to see it. But just one of the main things that come out to me is the expansive role in terms of the Audit and Scrutiny Committee and making sure we fulfil the outcomes of this. And I just wondered, obviously there'll be reports coming to Audit and Scrutiny, and I just wondered if we'd be having sort of regular meetings in between, just to, if there was anything came up. I mean, I know that's, if there's anything comes up as you're going through the course of the internal audit, you would be wanting to talk to Audit and Scrutiny, and I wondered if there would be a mechanism for that to be in place.
It's something that we can certainly look at, definitely. I know we've had briefing meetings held in the past for some topics with the members, and always open to having any extra meetings that are required. At the minute, any formal mechanisms, we tend to go through Chris at the minute to organise the dates and such. But it is something we could look at further to make it more documented, if you wish.
Well, that'd be great, thanks. I was just reading through it. I saw the amount that we have quite a key role to play in that, so I wanted to ensure we were fulfilling our obligations. So I appreciate that. Any other questions? No. Okay. Happy to move. As I say, we're very grateful that we had sight of the document before, so we've been able to have a good review of it, and it's a very interesting document, like that. It has a good read through, and well, thank you for that. So happy to move. Can I have a seconder? Yep, Councillor Benny. Open to debate. Would anybody like to debate? No. Well, we're seeking to approve the internal audit strategy and an updated internal audit charter. So we're to consider and approve the internal audit strategy, consider and approve the internal audit charter, and note that both documents meet the requirements of the global internal audit standards and their application in the UK public sector. Are we happy to approve and note? Okay, thank you very much. And we're now moving on to paper 8, just to confuse everybody today. So, and that is the internal audit progress report, and that's over to you again, Sarah.
Lovely, thank you. Hopefully there'll be no interruptions this time. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on where we are in the completion of the 25-26 internal audit plan. Paragraphs 4.1 and 4.2 provide an update on the completion of the 25-26 internal audit plan. A summary of the 25-26 progress is also at Appendix 1. Paragraphs 4.3 to 4.4 specifically highlight some delays we have faced completing the internal audit plan. I'd also like to draw members' attention to Section 5, which relates to actions taken on duplicate payments. I'd ask members to note the recommendations and conclusions, that is progress with the finalisation of the internal audit plan, carry forward of 3-year audits into 26-27 audit plan, which we'll come on to in the next paper, and the work undertaken in 25-26 will contribute to the provision of a balanced and evidence-based year-end opinion. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Do you have any questions? No. Just in view of the fact of, and thanks for the context that you've given, that there have been delays, and I know there was substantial delays because there was huge pieces of work that happened last year, and that, so I'm just really want to ask, is that knocked off some of the other work that we were progressing, because there was some large pieces of work to take forward?
Well, it's not knocked off, we've deferred it. We haven't ignored the work that we not managed to get to in the plan, and that's the 3 audits that were deferred. We've put them on the plan that we think or realise there is risks associated, and therefore they should be taken into account and not ignored. So that's why they've been moved forward into the 26-27 plan to deal with.
And would that potentially reduce the number of actions you're able to take? If you're carrying forward actions, would that reduce the number of actions you're able to start as a new action in the following year?
Yes, unfortunately, it has had that impact. We have, if I remember off the top of my head, the 3 carry forwards, and we have 3 new audits, which we'll get to in the next paper. But yes, we only have a finite number of resources. We have, as part of the joint working agreement, we have 1 internal auditor who's employed by Clickmanager and solely works on Clickmanager audits. And then we have to give equivalent of 1 full-time person from Falkirk to do audits, and that involves my time and the audit manager's time on planning and attendance and preparation at committees, external groups. So it does knock down the actual available resources we have. So yes, unfortunately, by deferring some audits, although they're still classed as a risk and we cannot be ignored, does limit what new audits we take on. However, we do try and get a balance between all the different areas and services and divisions in order to get that balanced opinion for the year end.
Okay, thanks very much. Any other questions?
Maybe just also on that point, Chair, obviously we have a vacancy currently for a senior internal auditor. We did go out to recruit, but we weren't successful. So we are looking to progress that further to kind of bolster the resource and the capacity within the internal audit team. And there's ongoing work through the collaboration, through transformation as well.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Any other questions? No. So I'm happy to move this paper. It's useful for us to see, although this and other papers that we'll come on to, there are some concerns, obviously, and we'll come on to that in future papers, but it's very useful for us to see this progress, but also to have a real clear picture as audit and scrutiny as to the areas that are being completed and the progress that's been seen in the internal audit. So that's much appreciated. Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Bennett, you're the ongoing seconder today. Thank you. We're now open to debate. And I'd like to debate the paper. So this is a paper for noting. So we're happy to note the progress made with finalisation of the internal audit plan and the carry forward of 3 audits into the 26-27 audit plan and the action taken on duplicate payments. So we're happy to note that. Okay, thank you. And again, on to another papers we're going the backwards. It's like so. Paper 7. So internal audit plan 26-27, and again, Sarah.
Lovely, thank you. This report from internal audit sets out our proposed programme of works for 26-27 for approval. Paragraphs 3.1 to 3.3 highlight the requirements of the preparation of a risk-based internal audit plan as part of the global internal audit standards. And that in agreeing the plan, committee should be aware that the priorities for internal audit resource could change over the course of 26-27. Therefore, the plan must be considered flexible. And this takes into the comments that we just had on that last paper about resources available if we get asked to do other audits at the time. The risk approach and the resources and reporting arrangements are in section 4. Specifically, paragraphs 4.1 to 4.6 provide detail of what makes up the preparation of the plan, including the audit universe, which can be seen at Appendix 1. Now, I am happy if there's any updates to this audit universe to populate it in for future as well. As well as the global internal audit standard topical requirements are noted. The table at paragraph 4.11 summarises the resources we have got available for delivering our programme of works at Click Manager Council. The table is split into 4 categories with fuller details, including an additional category of indirect audit time at paragraph 4.12. This year, we have also provided planned direct audit days per assignment in compliance with the Global Internal Audit Standard. The assignments that make up each element of the plan are set out in Appendices 2 and 3. We've tried to give a little bit of detail of what scope for each is likely to be, though again may change once we start properly planning each assignment over the course of the year. The process for planning, undertaking and reporting on each individual assignment will broadly remain the same as previous years and is set out at paragraph 4.13 to 4.15. This does include an additional preliminary planning stage documented at paragraph 4.13 in line with the Global Internal Audit Standards. Paragraph 4.19 highlights that each year an internal audit annual assurance report is presented to committee. Internal audit will give an overall opinion on the Council's risk management, governance and control arrangements based on the work internal audit has carried out over the course of the year. The internal audit plan has already been shared with the senior leadership group and audit and scrutiny committee members to ensure that views were sought and reflected if possible. Feedback received was positive and required only one change to the proposed plan. I draw your attention to recommendations at paragraph 2.1. Particularly, can I ask the audit committee approves the internal audit plan for the year, but to bear in mind resources available to internal audit and the need for the plan to be flexible. Internal audit will direct resources to where they're most needed, and progress will be reported to audit committee on the ongoing basis. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Have any questions? No. And totally appreciate that as a committee that there will be changes potentially as things arise. Or we're very flexible on that as a committee, and we recognise that you've got the experience to do the work that you're going to do. That's just a preamble rather than a question. But in terms of so obviously there's some work in partnership with the HSCP, because some of these aspects will be under the new arrangements for the HSCP, where Stirling Council are taking the lead, where we're only dealing with the plant manager element. So I'm presuming there'll be work needing to be done with Stirling Council, or is it just going to be standalone work?
We will review it when it comes to the planning stage. Obviously, the number of days we have assigned to it as a guide, and we can do more days if necessary, if when we come to planning we feel that it should be going to some of the Stirling side. At the minute, we are concentrating on and planning to concentrate on the Clerk Manager Council, but we're not ruling out anything that is required to do with Stirling. With the new GIAS standards, we have to do new planning documents which detail down how we're wishing to take this on and assign it the number of days. I think at that stage it's where it'll become identifiable. Can we put a Stirling element into this audit or not? But as this is Clerk Manager Council's audit plan, we'll be focusing on Clerk Manager Council for now, but not ruling out any aspects of going to Stirling.
Well, that sort of comes on to my second question, which is obviously we're looking at the Stirling and Clerk Manager City Region deal. So obviously that's Stirling and Clerk Manager. So I wondered how that will be managed, and to ensure that Clerk Manager, I suppose, get the most out of it.
From that side of things, we will be looking at the Clerk Manager element of it, the governance around the Clerk Manager, how's that being managed within the council. I think Councillor Forson had mentioned previously about certain projects within the Clerk Manager handle that she wished to look at measurable outcomes from, and we had sort of agreed to take that forward if possible with the number of days allocated. So although we'll be getting any of the paperwork that's required to say what Clerk Manager Council's part of this is, we will be focusing on Clerk Manager Council from a governance perspective.
Just on that, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's been an overall audit of the city regional deal itself. And from that, each of the constituent partners now have to do their own audit of their part of that deal. So it's been a global one, and now each partners are doing their own audit.
For that clarification, thanks, Chair. Any other questions? No. So I'm happy to move this paper. I can see the amount of work that we're going to be doing in that. It's good to see some of the carry forwards, like the things we've talked about before, like the city region deal coming into fruition. I know that's been a concern for Councillor Forson, and it's good to see that moving forward. But it's also good to see a balance actually of where the time is going to be allocated. And I realise that might change and emerge as we move forward, but it's good actually for us to have some kind of idea about the kind of time that's involved in each of these different areas. I think that's really useful as a committee. So thanks so much. And again, I mean, I appreciate the time put in. It must take quite a while to understand how much days is going to be involved in each of these, and it's good for us to see that. So thank you very much. Can I have a seconder, please? Okay. Thank you, Councillor Benny again. We're open to debate. Would you like to debate the paper? No. So we're asked to note the resources available to internal audit and that the plan is flexible. Approve the internal audit plan for 26-27 and note that progress will be reported. Oh, sorry, Councillor Errol, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I have nothing to debate. I just want to say thank you very much to the team for the work that's went into these 4 papers. They've been extremely comprehensive reports, and I can understand the hours that went in to prepare these. So, Sarah, thank you, and thank your team.
Well, thanks, Councillor Errol. So are we happy to note the resources available to the internal audit and the plan is flexible, approve the internal audit plan for 26-27, and note that any progress will be reported to Audit and Scrutiny Committee on an ongoing basis, with any significant changes in year brought back for approval. So we're happy to approve and note?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And we're now on to item 6. So that is Internal Audit Annual Assurance Report 25-26. And I think this is your last one, Sarah. You'll be glad to know.
You can get a rest. You can get a rest from my voice after this, and thank you very much. So this last report is the 25-26 Internal Audit Annual Assurance Report. The purpose is to summarise the work Internal Audit have undertaken over the course of the last year and to provide an overall opinion on the Council's arrangements for risk management, governance and control based on that work. The report also comments on our compliance with global internal audit standards. As you can see from section 2, the committee is asked to note that sufficient internal audit work was undertaken to support a balanced assurance, and the internal audit can provide limited assurance on the Council's arrangements for risk management, governance and control for the year to the 31st of March 2026. In addition, I can report that internal audit met or exceeded 2 of its key performance indicators and operated with no real or apparent impairment or restriction to scope, independence, objectivity of internal audit activity during the year. Section 4 of the report provides a summary of the internal audit workload in 24-25. This includes paragraph 4.1 to 4.3, which relate to our role of the National Fraud Initiative, and paragraph 4.4, which provide an update on the quarterly work undertaken on duplicate payments. I also highlight in section 4 the overall adequacy of the internal audit work undertaken during 25-26, as well as outcomes related to 3 reviews from 24-25, which are included as part of this annual assurance report. Paragraph 4.5 highlights the committee the number and types of assurance opinions and internal audit reviews completed to date in 25-26, with analysis of comparative data from previous years available. This year, I've also been able to provide another table at 4.17, which provides a summary of the number of recommendations made within each of our grade 1 to grade 3 classifications. At paragraph 4.23, you can see the internal audit performance against the 3 key performance indicators. Actual performance exceeded target for 2 out of 3 indicators. However, in the third, the percentage completion of the draft reports within 3 weeks of completion of field work has dropped below target from last year. Reasons for this slight drop are at paragraph 4.24 and 4.25. Our overall opinion of limited assurance can be found at paragraph 4.28. Section 5 of the report comments on our compliance with the global internal audit standards. These set out the principles and practices that we must comply with, and every year we're required to undertake a self-assessment against the standards. The internal audit manager undertook a detailed self-assessment in 2023 and was then subject to independent external validation. In line with the requirements, the outcome was reported to committee in April 2024. Falkirk Council's internal audit has also recently been subject to its own 5-yearly review during 24-26. It's going on a bit. A separate Clackmannanshire Council annual assessment was not undertaken in 25-26. As it was anticipated, the Falkirk Council assessment and recommendations would impact on the improvements that internal audit could make to both councils. In conclusion, and drawing your attention to the recommendations of paragraph 2.1 and the conclusions at section 6, internal audit undertook sufficient work during 25-26 to support a balanced and evidence-based opinion that limited assurance can be placed in the Council's arrangements for risk management, governance and control. Providing this opinion, internal audit operated with no impairments or restrictions to independence. Appendix 2 details the status of the 25-26 internal audit programme, with Appendix 3 providing more detail for each specific audit. Appendix 4 is a new addition this year, detailing the status of overdue recommendations on Pentana by audit and recommendation grade. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Councillor Bennett?
Yes, thanks. Thanks for that, Sarah. It's quite a lot to take in. I'm
doing myself here, I'm sorry.
the 4.4, 4.5, well, 4.5 is really the one that I'm a wee bit weary about. It's a 6-monthly basis, but the period April 25 to March 26, 84 potential duplicate payments. How normal is that, or is it, you know, it's quite a lot of money to have been forgotten about, basically, for a good wee while. Or am I doing that wrong?
No, it's a very valid question. Just draw your attention, it's 84 potential payments, and I agree that the gross value of 500 odd thousand looks very scary. However, these actually weren't duplicates. Not all of these were duplicates after the end of any investigation work. And just to give you one example, there was 2 invoices coming through for over £400,000, and it was a pure timing issue that they were annual payments and one had just fallen into the new financial year instead of going into the previous financial year. That we were looking at how it was dealt with in the accounts is probably separate. So they are only potential payments and duplicates. And I think we ended up getting down to a lot less a figure once any of the investigation work had carried out. So we highlight what we think is potential after we've looked at invoice numbers, amounts. We then give that over to your creditors team, who will then look further at it, and we'll have an understanding of what these invoices actually are. And if it's same amount for a specific reason and it's different quarters, say. And so it really isn't 84 overall actual duplicates that are coming through on that.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
So I was wanting to ask, really, I mean, obviously, as a committee, we're very disappointed that we're still in this level of limited assurance, and recognising that some of these aspects, like, for example, the purchase order issue, has been something that has been quite significant and is linked into the Health and Social Care Partnership. So I really wanted a bit more context on that. So thanks, Wendy.
Thanks, Wendy.
Sorry.
Thank you. Wendy Forrest, Head of Strategic Planning and Health Improvement for the Health and Social Care Partnership. Thank you for the question. I do have an update which we thought might be helpful within this committee around that limited assurance, around some of the technical processes that are being undertaken within the Health and Social Care Partnership. We met yesterday to reaffirm our position and to talk through the actions, and genuinely grateful for Derek Barr as the Corporate Procurement Manager's support around this. In terms of the purchase order process, we've got the care and support framework is now fully implemented within Clerk Manager, so we are able to draw down the contracts and work within that space. We have the operational implementation around the purchase orders for the providers. We've now got a process that future-proofs, using that framework, that future-proofs us into a new social work recording system, which allows us just to lift and lay into that system. It will also align to the new financial module, which I know that Wendy Robertson is leading that process around procurement. So we're working closely with PwC and with Wendy about that transformation work. So all of the work that we're doing to get our systems and processes in the right place will just be lifted and laid in terms of those processes. We've also got the scheme of delegation for all managers. You will be aware that the partnership has had various leadership changes across the last 5 or 6 years. Those leadership changes have now been they are now all compliant within that scheme of delegation, and within Tech One and within the system, all of those processes and all of those managers have the correct delegated authority for sign-off, so that they have oversight of each of their budgets and the budget spend against that. And that's in line, as you would hope and expect, with the Council's contract standing orders. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Wendy. That's really helpful. The other one that I was looking at was, which I was surprised at actually, because this committee know how well the procurement department take these issues seriously. So I was just wanting to ask about the community benefits aspect and ask is maybe that capacity issue, what is the issue with that not being able to move forward? I don't know if Derek is there.
Yeah, can you go through that question?
Just wouldn't let me set my camera on for some reason. Apparently I hadn't approved something, so there you go. Sorry, sorry, Chair, could you elaborate a little bit more on what you're looking for with regard to community benefits?
Yeah, so I was just saying that you've always been really helpful to this committee in terms of giving us information, so I'm surprised to see that one come forward. But I just wondered if it was maybe the fact that it's maybe policy, maybe capacity or something that's not being able to progress.
There's been a number of pieces of work that's been done up to March of this year, and hopefully that's now been fully reflective in Pintana, right, that show that most of these audits have been completed. There was one policy document which was ongoing that's been completed, that's been put through our procurement matters group. It's been they've approved that, they're fully up to speed with that. And I think with one of the other services there was a training module or process being undertaken. That's well in advance. It's just been piloted just to check and see how that's going to go, but that's well in a good place. So if that's not already completed in Pintana, it's probably not far from that.
That's really reassuring to hear. Thanks so much, Derek. Appreciate that. No, I'm aware that some of these, there might have been a substantial amount of progress already and that we're receiving the report at a specific stage, but as a report we're coming on to later, I think it's showing us that a lot of action will be completed by the end of June, and we'll obviously come on to that at the point. But the other one was, in terms of building security, I was really concerned to see, even though there was people were challenged once they'd entered Alba Academy. Obviously, that's one of our local schools. That's a concern. Good to know they were challenged, but I'm still worried about that. And also the fact that the road step, somebody was able to actually access vehicles with a key still in the ignition. So that's obviously quite a concern. And I just wondered, to me, these are really significant, particularly in view of the high level of threat we have as a council at the moment. And I just wanted to gain some assurance that this has been addressed.
Maybe I can come in on that, Chair. So in relation to the audit, so all the recommendations that came out of that internal audit, I think there was 45 in total, which is highlighted in the following paper. At the time of the report being written, 44 of those actions had been completed. The one outstanding action was the building security policy. Now, you'll recall that Council approved that at the last Council meeting. So that would close off that as last action. There is work now to be undertaken with regards to the communication of that policy. Toolbox talks how we implement that policy going forward. But the actions that came out of the internal audit have been implemented.
And I think that's a really good reassurance for this committee that although we're receiving this report and it looks really concerning, that we are actually taking forward some of these matters. I'll come on to that a bit more in debate. But do we have any other questions?
Just maybe come in on the point that you'd raised earlier, Chair, with regards to obviously the concern that committee have with regards to the limited assurance. So we're obviously, I think this is our third year of limited assurance. And those concerns are also reflected by the senior leadership group within the council. We'd spoken to internal audit previously with regards to doing a more widespread review of internal audit. Obviously, the capacity elements that were in the internal audit team, we're looking to commission an independent organisational-wide review of compliance across our governance framework. It's specifically going to be a learning, focused and forward-looking ask intended to support senior officers, elected members, and specifically this committee to understand some of the systemic issues that we might have. So it's predominantly being commissioned in relation to, as a part of recognition of our prolonged financial constraints, loss of corporate memory, sustained recruitment pressures, increased statutory, regulatory and external scrutiny expectations on the council, and significant demand on services and increased local level of complexity. So there are a number of strategic objectives arising out of this ask. So we're looking to provide an independent assessment of how effectively our governance framework and internal controls and assurance mechanisms are understood by staff, identify any root causes and barriers to non-compliance that are maybe leading to some of this limited assurance, assess the impact of organisational change, including our workforce reductions, turnover and vacancies on how they impact on our controls, as well as identifying areas of good practice, and some practical and proportionate recommendations to come out of that, and that report to come back to the Audit and Scrutiny Committee for that assurance that we are looking at, and we are cognisant of the fact that we are, as I said, in the third year of limited assurance. SLG are equally concerned with that, and we're looking to see how we can improve that and do that fuller governance piece across the council.
Thanks very much, Chris. Questions? So I usually say I'm happy to move the paper. Sadly, I'm not happy to move this paper at all. I think it's an example of how necessary this committee is, that we're able to scrutinise these matters. I think, and really, really important in view of following up on what Chris has said about the work that's actually going forward, and it'd be good for the committee to have a kind of ongoing update on how that's progressing, so that we're keeping an eye on this and we're not just coming back to another limited assurance next year, but we're keeping an eye and making sure that we're progressing with that. So I think that's really important. It's challenging when we see that some of these aspects are so significant and quite a significant risk actually in terms of some of the areas that we're looking at. But I'm encouraged to see that, you know, speaking to officers, that things are actually moving forward. So that's really positive. It's not all negative, although this report highlighted to us, which is obviously absolutely necessary, what needs to be done. But what is really important, that officers have taken that seriously, the leadership team have taken that seriously, and that are moving forward to progress these actions. So we're not just sitting with these actions coming up year on year with no progress. So I think that's really important, and I'm really encouraged to see that. And obviously, as a committee, we'll keep a close eye on that over the next year, just to ensure that we are moving forward with these actions. So not happy to move, but able to move. So can I have a seconder, please? Yeah, Councillor Bailey. We're open to debate. No. So the committee's been asked to note progress in the 25-26 work and that sufficient internal audit work was undertaken to support a balanced assurance, progress with National Fraud Initiative exercise, any action on duplicate creditor payments, progress with overdue recommendations. Internal audit met and exceeded two of its key performance indicators, however, performance dropped slightly in one of the indicators. And internal audit can provide limited assurance in the Council's arrangements for risk management, governance and control for the year to 31st March 2026. And in providing this opinion, internal audit operated with no real or apparent impairment or restriction to scope, independence, objectivity of internal audit activity during the year. Are we happy to note? Okay, thank you. Thanks very much, Sarah. Thank you for all that.
Thank you.
Okay, so have we got one more? Oh, that's you. Right, okay. I was confusing myself there because it said internal audit actions. So item 10, internal audit actions progress report.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, committee. This report invites the committee to note, comment on and provide appropriate challenge on the progress being made in implementing internal audit actions. Appendix 1 provides an extract from the Pintana system, offering a comprehensive overview of progress against recommendations arising from internal audit reports, while Appendix 2 summarises the current position and ongoing activity. As outlined in Appendix 2 of the ongoing open internal audit reports, a total of 241 actions have been identified, of which 190 have been completed, representing a 79% completion rate. And we've discussed in the earlier paper some of the actions that are ongoing in relation to HSEP, for example. While a number of actions remain outstanding, the Pintana extract provides an overview of progress made towards their completion and closure. Ongoing efforts are being made to ensure that all agreed internal audit recommendations are implemented in a timely manner. However, as we've previously reported to this committee, the increasing service pressures, resource constraints do affect the officers' ability to meet all of the agreed timescales. As outlined to committee previously, to maintain momentum, there does and remains a strong focus across all directorates on driving progress. The completion of audit actions continues to be a standing agenda item on the strategic leadership group and the Directorate Senior Management Team meetings, with reporting to this committee on a quarterly basis. Chair officers from across our directorates and I are happy to take any questions before the paper is formally moved.
Okay, any questions? So Chris, obviously one of them or a couple have come forward from 2017-18, so they've been there for a substantial period of time and there's still only 50% progress. Is that in view of the fact that some of these are not seen as high priority, or is it just that there's not been the time to put that in place?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think it's not been seen as a matter of not being a priority. I think in terms of the services that are assessing the level of the risk, and whether it becomes a priority in terms of the scheme of work that's been undertaken. I'm conscious that the sundry debtors one, for example, has been outstanding for a while. The work is progressing now on getting those. And when there's more documented, they will have processes in place. It's just not been documented. So it's assessing that level of risk and whether or not we can carry that level of risk, and whether it's a low risk. Whereas we do look to close off the grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 recommendations. The previous order for sundry debtors, there was no grading system at that point. So our focus those has been on the grade 1s going forward, which we've closed off.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. On page 144, I see adult social care purchase order arrangements were due by the 31st of July 24. We're now to 26 and we're still only sitting at 41%. Is there a reason for that?
Thank you, Councillor Earl. So the original internal audit was undertaken in 2024, and then it was subsequently reviewed again last year. I think as Wendy highlighted in the previous paper, the assurance that she gave that those actions have been progressed. I don't know, Wendy, do you want to come back up and reaffirm your previous comments?
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Councillor Errol, for your question. I think if I can offer the assurance that the leadership team are taking this exceptionally seriously, and we're also doing the future proofing in preparation for the new social work recording system, the finance modules which are around that. So what we're creating is systems and processes which we will be able to lift and lay into those new systems, whilst also having a process around how we manage with the systems we currently have. And it's the interface between finance, the social work recording system, and the need for us to be able to manage our financial position for managers across the 3 employers, to be able to access the systems and be able to manage the budgets within Clackmannanshire, where that responsibility lies. So those issues of the scheme of delegation, of authorisation, have all now been put in place, which they weren't previously. And I genuinely am grateful for the support of Derek Barr, who's been working with my team to ensure all of that's in place, Councillor Errol. I would hope that we will have a much more detailed update at our next committee meeting, and we will have updated Pentana in terms of that systems and processes work, and also the operationalisation and the implementation of the care and support framework across all of our services within Clackmannanshire. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Wendy. A very comprehensive reply. Thank you.
In terms of the leisure banking, obviously that's an area we can't give much information on, but and we've had an update that that's still ongoing. But obviously I've noted on a further page that monthly reconciliations are now being carried out by the accountant on an ongoing basis. And I wondered, I know we've had issues with capacity within the finance team. I wonder if we're able to manage some of the financial challenges that we have moving forward within the capacity that we have to ensure these things are addressed.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the leisure banking, the reconciliations are in place. They have been in place for a number of times, but we are awaiting the outcome of the investigation to be able to close off one of the outstanding actions. So there is capacity in the team. We prioritise that as quite quite important, quite high priority. So that is being done. With the wider capacity, I think you referenced the sundry debtors element, and we'd heard that that's, while we've got processes in place, they aren't necessarily documented. So there are areas where we're prioritising based on a risk basis, based on our statutory deadline. We are trying to recruit to establish a bigger team in both the finance and the revenue areas to be able to make sure that we're able to respond to these. But it's something that's an ongoing challenge, a recruitment challenge in terms of that skilled. So I'd say that we do have the capacity at the moment to deal with most things, but we are having to prioritise as we go forward, and we are constantly reviewing our team structures to see if we could enhance that.
I think it's a challenge across the board with accountancy staff, unfortunately. Seems to be I regularly have agencies calling me to say, do you know MD for a post? So it seems to be an ongoing challenge, but I don't know if there's an answer to it, or maybe it's more about kind of developing somebody from a lower grade up, but I don't know if the team do that as well.
So we have that in place within revenues. We've offered the IRRV qualification, the Institute of Ratings Revenue Valuation, I get it right. So we've given a number of opportunities to our existing staff to take that on board, and we've had a number of successful qualifications through that. In terms of the finance staff, we're also offering, if there is anybody who wants to do their professional exams, we can consider that and what support that we can give to them for that. We're also using a consultant, so we go through My Job Scotland and advertise posts at least once, if not 3 times. But we are also quite a good relationship with our an agency as well, and we're working in partnership for them. So we built quite a good relationship that they understand our business, know what we're looking for, and we use them. So we're looking for alternative methods of recruitment, but it's something that when I'm speaking to my colleagues across councils, they're experiencing the same. It is difficult to recruit professional posts.
Yeah, no, I understand. And it must be really challenging when you've got quite a lot to cover as well. So, yeah, no, thanks, Lindsay. Any other questions? Nope. So I'm happy to move this report because I think Chris has given a good assurance in terms of how things are moving forwards and what's been done to address these actions. I'm satisfied with that. I feel that it's not that these are just sitting on the shelf and not being taken forward. They are being taken forward. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate across all areas, and also the challenges. We're a very small local authority, and we have challenges in recruitment that are particular, I think, in sometimes to cut manager, because we're an outlying area. It's more difficult than to recruit in the main kind of areas of Glasgow and Edinburgh and so on. So a lot of these things are to some extent out of control, but I'm encouraged that the team are working really hard to address all of these issues, and hopefully, I'm hoping for next year where we have substantial assurance. I'm sure we will. So can I have a seconder? Yeah. Thank you. Open to debate? No. Okay, so the committee are asked to no comment on and challenge the report. So are we happy to note? Okay, thank you. Item 11, Annual Governance Statement 24-25, End of Year Progress, and that is Fiona Grinley.
Good morning. Firstly, would committee please note that this paper incorrectly refers to the Audit and Scrutiny Committee meeting being held on Thursday the 12th of June at sections 3.7 and 11.1. The correct meeting date is, of course, Thursday the 11th of June, and the papers will be amended after committee for the public reminders.
Thank you.
So this paper provides an update on progress against the improvement actions identified through the Council's annual governance statement. The AGS remains a key component of our governance framework, bringing together assurance from internal and external audit, inspections, and our own self-assessment activity. This report focuses on the delivery of agreed actions up to the 31st of March 2026. It shows that progress is being made across a number of areas, including strengthening financial resilience, performance management, and core governance arrangements. However, that progress continues to be delivered against a backdrop of financial constraint, workforce capacity challenges, and the need to embed significant organisational change. These factors inevitably influence both the pace and capacity for improvement. Overall, the report demonstrates a continued and structured commitment to addressing identified weaknesses and strengthening our governance arrangements over time. I invite the committee to note the progress made to date and the areas where further work is ongoing. Along with colleagues, I'm happy to take any questions. Do we have any questions?
Can I ask on page 185, we're obviously, I'm really encouraged to see 100% progress in the medium-term financial strategy, but what I was wanting to ask about was obviously creating the financial resilience framework is only sitting at 10%, and review local financial returns is at 5%. I wonder what's been done in those areas.
I'll invite Lindsay to come and answer that question.
Thank you, Chair. As you noted, the medium-term financial strategy was approved by Council in June last year, and we have made a commitment to develop a resilience framework. That is on hold at the moment, pending other priorities that we're working through. So we're finalising the annual accounts. We finalised the annual accounts for 23-24. We're now progressing 24-25 and 25-26, along with our budget setting for 27-28. So whilst it is something that we are still planning to do during this financial year, we've not made progress on it so far because of the other things that we're prioritising in the team with reference to the capacity challenges that I've also mentioned earlier in the meeting. The local finance returns development as well. So that's quite an intensive process. And again, just to give a wee bit context, we've nearly had about a 90% turnover in the finance and within the management accounting team. So many of our staff are new and they're being familiarised with our processes and our routines. So we're prioritising actually completing the returns, and we'll pick up that review later in the year. Unfortunately, it's not something that we can get anybody else in to do. We need to do a lot of the work ourselves, whereas we can go and seek support from professional area. Do need to do a lot of work ourselves. So it's still planned for this year, but is on hold at the moment.
I think it's positive that you're doing the work yourselves because it means that the learning and development is within the team as well. So I think that's a positive way forward. So yeah, no, that makes sense. And I'm aware there's loads of priorities within the finance team at the moment, and capacity is an issue. So it's understandable. In terms of the standing orders, so that's another issue that's not progressing. I was just wondering if Lee, you want to cover that?
Of course, yes, thanks very much. I would say we're probably about 65% there. I had done a lot of work on it just before I went away on a holiday, but unfortunately I've had to put pretty much all of it on pause in order to deal with the response at Coles and Orton. So, but my intention is to try and get that moved as quickly as possible, reconvene the standing orders group that we'd set up, get a review of what I've done to date, and then hopefully get that presented as soon as I possibly can to Council for approval.
Thank you. Then looking through, it's encouraging to see that most of these actions, well, quite a number of these actions are on 100%, but the other one that I noted that was a kind of low level was the exploring options for income generation across the council. And obviously that's something that, with the city deal in particular, that's really important. And I just wondered what progress was happening with that.
I think perhaps Wendy or Chris?
Yeah, I can come in on that. So we have recently recruited an investment officer We are looking at our investment strategy. That will come up to council in due course, but we have recruited our investment officer for that. As part of our budget process as well, though, there is a focus or an expectation on the directorate to ensure that they're maximising income opportunities, as well as looking at other potential areas for saving. So income maximisation is very much the forefront of all officers at this moment.
Yes. I think it's in terms of what we're trying to achieve as a council, it's really important to be able to bring in additional funds. So that's really helpful. No, I mean, other than that, like, most things seem to be progressing really well. Obviously, councillors have been involved in the town centre master plan, so and I know that is progressing, and I know that it was raised by Councillor Forson that she didn't feel that councillors were involved at an early stage in that, so I'm presuming that's going to be addressed moving forward. Sorry if that's one that nobody.
That's the police directorate question, I think, at the moment. So we'll come back to answer that if that's all right.
No, that's okay. I think it has been addressed. I just wanted to draw that out at this committee, but I think it has been addressed. And obviously we've covered the finance team being adequately resourced. So no, thank you very much. Is there any other questions from any other members? No. So I'm happy to move this document. I think it's good to see the level of progress. I think I commented at pre-meeting. I really like the way this has been laid out. So thank you very much. It's really easy to understand. It's clear. The colour coding is really helpful. It's a really accessible document, and I think the more that we do accessible documents in council, the better. So for me, I think it ticks quite a few boxes in that way. So I really appreciate it. But also, it gives us a clear indication where things are progressing well, and it also shows us the areas of committee to focus on that we need to come back to. So I really appreciate that. It's been a great paper. Thanks very much. Thank you. Can I have a seconder? I keep looking at you now, Martha. Yeah, I know. Thank you.
No eyes across there.
Thanks very much. So we're open to debate. Do you want to debate the paper? No. So the committee is asked to note, comment on and challenge the report. We're happy to note. Okay, thank you. And we're now moving on to item 12, the corporate risk register, and that's this.
Good morning, committee. Once again, unfortunately, it was due to be Cherie. So Cherie has had to, along with Kevin, attend the LRP that is commenced at 10:30. So I'm very last minute standing in for Cherie, so I will be very dependent on Judy, who is joining me as well. So this report presents the 25-26 Q4 corporate risk register and is presented as part of an overall corporate performance management framework approach. The report highlights that risk management is a critical ongoing function for Comanche Council in achieving its strategic priorities, particularly in the context of significant financial, social and environmental pressure. As of Q4, the corporate risk profile is stable, with the overall distribution of risk severity largely unchanged from the previous report. 20 risks are identified, with 12 at red status, 6 amber and 2 green. No new risks have been added or removed to the register since the previous update provided to committee. The most significant risk relates to financial resilience, governance, housing supply, health inequalities, workforce capacity, cybersecurity and poverty, all of which carry potential severe impacts on service delivery and community wellbeing. One risk score has changed over the last quarter relating to failure to prepare for severe weather events, which has reduced in likelihood but increased in potential impact. The report also identifies several ongoing improvements in how the council manages and reports risks, focusing on strengthening governance, embedding consistency and making risk information more useful for decision making. The council's risk management approach continues to emphasise being risk aware rather than risk averse, balancing proactive mitigation with acceptance that some risks must be tolerated, and focusing on long-term transformation, partnership working and strengthened controls to improve resilience outcomes over time. Chair and committee, I would say I am happy to take questions, but I will be routing them through Judy, who is with us in chamber today.
Yes, thanks for joining, Judy. Just I was wondering, one of the main things that's arisen recently has been the issue in Coles Norton, and while we cover in our risk strategy public health emergencies, and I know in the individual risk strategies of different areas, there may be a risk in relation to this, but I wondered if there should be something along that kind of wording should be in a high level risk area.
Yes, we were just discussing that. There's a risk on the corporate services, partnership and performance corporate services register, which focuses more on the major incidents of this nature. So we're discussing potentially escalating that to the register to the corporate level.
No, I think that'd be great. I mean, obviously, we hope this is just one event, but it's good to have it on the risk register as to how, and I think the council response has been great, but it's good to see that we're considering that and planning for it as well. In terms of there was also one that I was thinking about in terms of, I sit on the audit and finance audit and risk committee of forms, I can never remember the FAP committee for the IGB. And we're always, we've been discussing our own risk register, and one of the things that came up was the vulnerability of individuals, and it was felt that that was probably would be better located within the constituent authorities rather than on the IGB. I don't know if Wendy wants to come in and whether that would be something to be considered moving forward. You're getting good exercise today, Wendy.
Yes, keep my distance up, councillor. Yeah, I think the conversation, I did speak to Jennifer Borthwick as interim chief officer about how we manage that, and what we had thought it might be helpful around all of this risk management, around financial risk, reputational risk, and also the risk to people, would be that we had an off-table conversation with the three organisations, probably with the two councils initially, around some of those risks and where they sit and how the constituent bodies and ourselves as the Integration Joint Board and Health and Social Care Partnership manage those risks so they're not lost within the systems and processes that we have working across the four organisations for us. Thank you.
No, thank you. I think that makes absolute sense, because just now it could be that one committee somewhere is considering it, but it doesn't link in with another committee. So it's no, that makes absolute sense. I mean, one of the things obviously is, you know, some of these risks, you know, we put mitigation issues in place, but it's how much we're actually able to reduce these risks down in the long term. So, for example, two I was thinking about was insufficient financial resilience. That's obviously ongoing, and there was a report out from, I think it was the Accounts Commission or Audit Scotland or something today, just about the level of financial challenges faced by councils. And so obviously that's something that's recognised and is going to be an ongoing one. And I wonder just how much control do we have to address that, and what can we do basically?
Well, I think, as said in the introduction, it is about risk awareness. So because we are focusing on outcomes, we need to be aware of things out with our control as well as those within our control. But we are hoping to do more of a fundamental review of the corporate register over the summer to look at, is the wording focusing on the heart of the issue? Are the scores appropriate? Again, thinking about the controls and the actions and the status of these things, and the suitability in terms of mitigating the risks. But it does have to be, for each issue, you do have to be then looking at which elements of this are within our control, and do we have to reduce the likelihood of it occurring in the first place, or is it just something we're going to have to react to if it does occur? So we have to summarise the things within our control as well as those out with. But then try to focus very much on you know, the things within our gift.
That's what I was wondering, because like I've been doing an exercise with the IGB recently in terms of, you know, what's the risk appetite and what's the risk tolerance. So, and I guess what you're saying, the risk tolerance is really what we can't control. So it's like, you know, what we're part of that. So I wondered, is there an exercise before the strategy to do that sort of work?
Yes, that appetite statement's up for the annual review of that the 5-year risk strategy. We said there's generally principles and risks that don't change over a 5-year period, but there are certain elements where we need to be more flexible on a year-to-year basis. So I've been working with Lorraine and various other people, including internal audit, annual government statement, tying all of these elements together and focusing our risk appetite and tolerance statement on these elements.
Councillor Earl, you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We are still on questions, yeah? On page 212, we talk about the reduction in the fewer children in poverty. Although it says there are 252, can you tell me how many are actually living in poverty? It's good to see that there has been a reduction, but I would like to know the numbers.
I think that would need to be for the wellbeing director. I think is that yeah, we do have just refreshed data that's come out on that, but I can't say I'm familiar with the exact figures at the moment.
We'll come back to you on that, Councillor Earl. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Yeah, thank you for that. As I say, it's good to see there has been a reduction. Reductions are always good. But I'll come in and debate on that one.
Thank you. I think, you know, it's good that we're continually, as I always say, it's good that we're keeping although it sounds counterproductive, but we're keeping the level of reds to ensure. So I presume that within the different departments where we've got a red label, there may be more policy initiatives at the back of that to ensure that those things are addressed. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, obviously at the corporate level, the risks are much more broad and strategic. And I think that's why we probably see less movement on the scores at that kind of level. But obviously within the hierarchy of risk registers, we do have obviously much more detail. You know, every risk on the corporate register has, you know, a whole set of individual risks behind it. And obviously we'll be looking at the policies that support you know, all of these areas within each service.
I think that's what I was trying to say really clumsily, that like obviously we're seeing it in the business plan later. So obviously a lot of these risks will be cascaded down and delegated to different departments. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why you always see more reds on the corporate register, because the criteria for escalating it to that level is and it's not a hard set in stone criteria, but it's is it red on a service register, or does it affect more than half of the council? And at that point, we would then be considering should this move up to the corporate register. But yes, very often greens are demoted because we believe that they can be managed at a very delegated level.
Thanks very much. Any other? So happy to move the report. I think it's comprehensive, and I have seen, I think one of our earlier things in audit scrutiny was we didn't see a lot of movement, but I think that's easily explained by the fact that this is the high level report, where a lot of the movement will be happening further down into the different directorates. So don't really see a movement in this where, like you say, some risks are taken off or we've got new risks appearing, which we were just talking about today. So from my point of view, I don't expect to see loads of movement in this, but it's good to see that there's mitigation actions in place and to be reassured that we're with the individual directorates. So that's positive. So thank you very much. And I'm looking for a seconder. So we're open to debate. Would you like to debate the paper? No. Okay, are we happy to note the paper?
Sorry, Chair, you're running ahead there. I know. As I said earlier on there, yes, it's always good to see the figures on poverty and children living in poverty decreasing. But it is still a high number of people receiving 252. That's a lot of children. And I look forward to Judy giving me the figures of the actual amount of children we have living in poverty. Because to have one figure, it doesn't mean anything unless you have the comparator. So, but with that, it's an excellent report. It certainly does show increases, and it shows the worth of the Audit and Scrutiny Committee, because we can drill down into these reports and find out the actual minutiae underneath. So, good report, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Earl. So, are we happy to note the report? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next item, item 13, exceptions from application of contract standing orders, and that is Derek.
Good morning, committee and chair. Appreciate the opportunity to present this paper. It's a requirement of contract standing orders that exceptions should be reported to the next available committee, and here we are. And on this occasion, we have one exception that's been considered since the last report in 2025, which is noted within that paper. So the committee is asked to note the report, comment and challenge as appropriate, and more than happy to take questions as always.
So Derek, are you happy with the contract with iTrend? Do you feel it's been beneficial?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Sorry, do you feel that the contract with iTrend has been beneficial to the council?
Absolutely. Yeah, but that's just my personal opinion. I'm sure Chris has got another opinion, or hopefully better. But yes, I'm more than happy with the software.
Yeah, I will confirm that. I think we've invested significantly in the iTrend system over a number of years. There were some teething problems at the very start, but it is developed and is working as a system that meets our needs and our requirements in terms of particular payroll, refloating the payroll elements of that, and the extension gives us additional benefits through learning and development as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay, I'm happy to move the paper. I feel, and I said this to Chris before, having dealt with HR systems throughout my life, if one works, don't mess with it. So basically, yeah, happy to to move this paper, and looking for a seconder. Yeah, Councillor Berry, open to debate. Not really happy to note the report. Yes. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 14, Audit Scrutiny Committee forward plan, and that is Chris.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning once again, Committee. The paper has been sent to ask members to consider and approve the draft forward plan for committee business for 2026-27. Agree that committee members complete a self-evaluation questionnaire. Agree committee will meet and consider the outputs of the evaluation, which will inform committee's annual report. Finally, note the progress made in relation to the 25-26 training plan. The Audit and Scrutiny Committee plays a key role in the governance arrangements of the Council. The draft forward plan aims to ensure committee are able to fully undertake their role, as well as reflecting the remit of the Audit and Scrutiny Committee. The remit includes receiving, reviewing and considering reports on Council finance, value for money and best value, considering and monitoring the Council's annual governance statement, considering internal audit reports and results of internal audit investigations, considering the effectiveness of the Council's risk management procedures and controls, monitoring Council services, including the HSCP, monitoring the achievements of agreed outcomes, standards and targets set by the CPP, and monitoring police and fire performance against plans approved by Council. Many of the reports today are in line with that remit. Whilst the forward plan reflects the core remit, the committee are asked to be aware that the plan may vary during the course of the year to accommodate unanticipated events. In relation to evaluation of effectiveness, the Chartered Institute of Professional Finance and Accountancy, or CIPFA, expects local authorities to make their best efforts to adopt the principles of the CIPFA position statement. The committee will recall that they committed to complete the self-evaluation questionnaire based on these principles on an annual basis, and as I've said, the outputs of these which form part of the committee's annual report. External audit have also indicated they will monitor progress on any areas of improvement identified for the evaluation. In relation to the training, while some progress has been made, there are a number of areas which remain outstanding, and Table 2 within the report provides updates to committee on how these outstanding areas will be delivered. Chair, committee, I'm happy to take any questions committee may have in advance of the paper being moved.
Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Harrison?
I suppose the only question I've got is regarding the kind of evaluation asks committee members, but I'm here as a sub today, so would that be extended to all elected members who could stand as subs?
When these.
There's going to be an amendment on that, councillor Harrison, so no, but I think
The evaluation is in relation to core members of the committee, because not all subs of the same clubs have come along to committee, so the self-evaluation question is core membership of the audited scrutiny committee.
Exactly. I was just asking because I'm here today and it's come up. If it had been just full members, I'm guessing it probably wouldn't have come up. As Councillor Rennie says, there's an amendment coming up in relation to changing what we've done. We're going to be asking members to stay behind, but we're looking to change that because there's a number of committee members around actually here. So we're going to revert back to what we've done in previous years. But
yeah. Any other questions? So happy to formally move. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Benny. Right, so sorry for my clumsiness in this. This is new to me, but so we have an amendment to item 14, Audit and Scrutiny Committee Forward Plan 26-27 for the Audit and Scrutiny Committee on Thursday, 11th of June 2026. The committee has been asked to amend recommendations 2.1.2 as follows. Agree that all committee members complete the online self-evaluation questionnaire Appendix 2 by the 31st of July 2026. Could I have a seconder, please? Yes. Councillor Benny again, thank you. And we're open to debate. Would anybody like to debate? No. Are we happy to approve the amendment? Okay, thank you very much. And then move to debate on the actual paper as amended. Thanks, Chris. Would anybody like to debate the paper?
I actually think it's self-explanatory, so I'm happy with that, thanks.
Thank you. So it's recommended that the committee approves the draft forward plan set out in Appendix 1. Obviously, the second one, 2.1.2, has been amended. Agree that all committee members will meet informally during September 2026 to review the results of the self-evaluation exercise. This will support the preparation of the committee's annual report for consideration at the October 2026 meeting and subsequent submission to council, and note the progress made in relation to the 25-26 training plan as detailed in paragraph 3.6. Are we happy to approve?
Agreed.
Thank you. Right, on to item 15. Partnership and Performance 25-26 Edge Business Plan Update, and that's Chris. Thank you, Chris.
thank you, Chair. Committee. I am pleased to present the 2025-26 year-end business plan update for the former Partnership and Performance Directorate. This report provides an overview of performance over the past year, alongside key achievements, challenges and risks which are set out in the accompanying report and in Appendix 1. The report also reflects the significant role that the Partnership and Performance Directorate played in supporting the Council to deliver its priorities and transformation ambitions. The Directorate continued to deliver a broad range of statutory and essential corporate services, including HR, finance, legal and governance, digital, customer services and transformation. These services underpin the Council's operation delivery, governance and financial resilience. Work during 2025-26 was guided by the business plan agreed by Council and aligned to the Council's Be the Future vision and transformation roadmap. The covering report, whilst introducing the 12-month update, also provides an overview of some of the key achievements and highlights from each of the services that made up the Partnership and Performance Directorate. The business plan itself was structured around 6 key themes: digital and data transformation, governance and assurance, workforce resilience, collaboration and innovation, performance and risk management, customer and stakeholder engagement. Overall, good progress was made across these areas with continued delivery of the digital roadmap, ongoing work to strengthen governance and compliance arrangements, and ongoing investment in workforce development and leadership capacity.
This has been supported by collaborative work with partners, improvements to performance management, and a renewed focus on customer engagement and access, ensuring stronger alignment between strategic priorities, service delivery, and outcomes. Appendix 1 of the report sets out detailed performance data, but I would highlight the following key areas. Council tax collection levels remain strong at just over 96%. Mandatory training completion continues to be high. Whilst 94% is reported, the Directorate was almost 100% when those on longer-term absences are excluded. 100% of council inquiries were responded to within the timescales during the reporting period. Call handling performance continued to improve, with 89% of calls answered and with reduced waiting times. Crisis and community care grant decision times performed strongly at or near 100%. The gender pay gap remained low, demonstrating continued pay equity. From a financial perspective, the Directorate delivered an underspent position overall, alongside strong delivery of savings, albeit with a small proportion of savings not achieved. As with previous years, there remains areas requiring continued focus. These include sickness absence levels, which remain above target and continue to require active management. Performance and complaints handling timescales has declined and is a key area for improvement. Recruitment and retention challenges, which we talked about earlier, persists in key service areas, particularly within finance and legal. The Directorate Service Risk Register identifies a number of strategic risks, including catastrophic business interruption, labour shortages leading to governance failures, financial resilience, and failure to deliver the digital transformation. These risks reflect the wider operating environment, including continued financial pressures, workforce capacity challenges, and increasing demand for digital and resilient services. Each risk continues to be actively managed through targeted actions and robust internal controls, including business continuity planning, workforce development, and investment in digital infrastructure. So in summary, the 2025-26 year-end position demonstrates that the Partnership and Performance Directorate maintained delivery of core statutory and corporate services, supported the Council's financial sustainability and governance arrangements, and played a central role in progressing the Council's transformation agenda. Chair, Committee, Officers from Corporate Services and I are happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Over to me again then. So just I wanted to ask, obviously on page 250 we've got the table of aspects in progress, and I'm aware that some of these items, well, at least one of them come to council. I would just want to maybe ask, are there areas where it says in progress in this table that they've actually been concluded?
In terms of the British Sign Language Plan, that was approved by Council at our previous meeting. The Gaelic Language Plan will go live for consultation tomorrow, so that would be taken back through. Strategies in progress. And there are ongoing works with regards to procurement strategy, digital data strategy, corporate communication is ongoing. We've had an external consult into that. I think those two have been completed.
Yeah, I was wanting to ask as well about on page 255 about the complaints. It seems to be a fairly low figure about help us. I just wondered what work was happening. I know it's come to this committee before, like what work has been done in the area of complaints being addressed.
I'll bring Lee in, but in terms of the numbers, so there were 22 complaints that we received in the period, of which 7 were upheld or partially upheld, and 9 out of the 22 were closed within the timescale. So yeah, we do understand that the timescales have slipped.
Yeah, just to remind members as well, we've just introduced a new complaint system. So that went live, I think it was a couple of months ago. That is been a work in progress. It's taken us to that time. It's going to give us much more accurate figures in terms of drilling down into the detail more around those complaints, and we'll be able to, in terms of the annual complaints report that we bring forward, we'll provide a lot more detail to that. So we do know that the officers are still working kind of the kinks out in the system as well.
I'll also highlight, it goes back to the piece I outlined earlier with that external work that we're doing in terms of governance compliance. So again, complaints, FOIs, these are still all areas of governance, so these are the areas that we need to look at to understand why timescales are not being met. It's the capacity, is it resources, or other reasons to understand that and learn from best practice in other areas across the council and wider.
And I'm aware that there is a new system, so I'm sure that will transform things. Yeah, absolutely. So obviously on page 260, there's a major incident response and recovery. So obviously that's something that's happened recently in council. I'm just wondering if, as we go through this process, if we're recording lessons learned for future situations.
Yeah, absolutely. As with any major incident, Chair, there will be a debrief that will be done as part of our response, how we responded to this. There will be a lessons learned coming out of that. That's done on an independent basis. Previously, Scottish Government has supported us with that, other councils support us with that, but it's done independently in terms of review and lessons learned. Yeah, absolutely, we'll be taken forward from that.
In terms of the annual accounts, again, I keep crossing over, but like in terms of the IGB was looking at maybe accounts for the constituent authorities being ready for their own audit coming up in the next few months. I was wondering, are we on track with our own accounts to get them completed imminently?
Thank you. So in terms of the information that we need to provide to the IGB to allow them to complete their accounts, we've provided that. So that's part of our processes for 25-26. What we've done is we've prioritised the 25-26 processes that need to happen as part of the year end, so that we have the information there that will allow us to prepare the 25-26 accounts, and part of that is the outcome reported that was presented earlier to this meeting. We're now at a point where we're going to move back to the 24-25 and conclude the draft accounts for 24-25 to try and bring us back on track and complete the 24-25 and then the 25-26. So we're engaging with the auditor at the moment. Initial conversations, they were going to start planning in June. So we still to pick up conversation with them. They haven't intimated when they would start that. And then we would produce the draft 24-25 to hand across to them for audit.
Thanks very much. In terms of the digital strategy and incorporating AI, I mean, I see AI is becoming, I mean, it's a huge thing in my work now. I mean, everybody's using AI. So do you see that that might actually streamline a lot of procedures because you're able to shorten the timescales with using AI as a support tool?
Absolutely. I'll let Wendy Robertson come in on our AI strategy and the digital strategy. But absolutely, those tools are aimed at bringing efficiencies across our services, increasing response times and a number of things, and using data in real time. But Wendy, do you want to maybe talk a bit more on the strategy?
Yes, in terms of our AI strategy, it will be submitted for policy approval at the end of June. It is in alignment with our digital strategy and our digital roadmap. We understand the value of data and the insights that it can bring for decision making and the impact on our service delivery also, but need to be mindful of the governance and assurance around AI and the use of that within the council to ensure that we have robust governance around that.
Yeah, I'm aware that with AI it's fantastic, but you've got to check everything and you've got to check it again and then you've got to check it again. So there's a time scale in that, but hopefully as it becomes more, I don't know, knowledgeable, I guess, a bit of the way. I don't even know what to say there, but as it learns more, I suppose we'll have less of that. The other question really was on, obviously we're implementing 365 and I'm aware there's a lot of training around cyber essentials in these aspects. And I wondered if there'd be training to elected members as well, because I imagine we'd be a risk.
That's something I can probably pick up on. Yeah, there are actually plans now to put that in place. The previous paper that we just had a look at, which was the Audit and Scrutiny Forward Plan, there was a training update in there. But what wasn't included in that, and as part of the conversations that I've had with senior managers from the Corporate Service Directorate, is what wider training is required for all elected members beyond audit and scrutiny. And cybersecurity was one of those areas that was picked up within that, and that will be taken forward post-recess.
Yeah, I'm conscious that probably a large proportion of elected members still have the password they were given when they started. So, yeah, so maybe that's something that should be addressed for the chair of this committee, never mind anybody else. But yeah, absolutely. So the other one really, just I had one more on the table really in terms of the sickness absence side. I was wondering, Ali, if you think like that's going to improve with the wellbeing initiatives that have been brought in terms of the sickness absence.
I mean, the supports that we have in terms of wellbeing are ever evolving. I think I've mentioned that in quite a few committees and councils at the moment. There is a robust set of policies that back that up as well. So we're hopeful that that complete picture of wellbeing supports, the policy and process basis, will result in reductions in absence. But as Chris says, we have seen increases. We have had issues with long-term absence with our absence compliance officer post, which has been unfortunate. But there are other supports in place. I don't know if Sarah wants to come in and provide any further detail.
Yeah, just to pick up on that, as Ali touched on, there's been some long-term absences, which obviously contributes to the stats overall. We are assured in HR we've been supporting all the managers, so the maximising attendance procedures are being fully followed. We are starting to see return to works actively now, so hopefully we will see an improvement.
Could maybe also say, so the corporate performance report that went up to council or audit and scrutiny the last time probably indicated the improvement in our absence levels in the LGBF report. So we weren't number 32 out of 32. We had improved, albeit slightly, but any improvement is welcomed. I think that the key thing is the fact that we do, we're an ageing workforce, as it's reflected across the organisation, but across the local authorities and across the country. And longer term absences and more complex conditions are becoming more apparent in the workforce. So we'll need to adapt our supports to flex to that and support people in that. But we do have a number of interventions. I think we're part of the SPDS Wellbeing Group as well. So some of the initiatives that we have are probably more forward thinking than some of the other councils. So we're all learning from each other as part of that network group as well.
That's good to hear. So you would, like, if somebody had sort of long-term condition, you would look at maybe different ways of working, flexible working, those kind of approaches, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah. We have a duty to make reasonable adjustments, etc. Anyway, but I think we more often than not go beyond what we need to see as reasonable. Our aim is to support and facilitate people to remain in the workplace. Unfortunately, there'll be occasions where that's not possible, but ultimately we're here to support when we can.
No, that's good to hear, actually. And it's not the case across the board, as you say, so it's good to hear that that's actually happening in terms of the other talk about equalities within the document as well. Just coming on to the risk register, which it's really good to see the catastrophic business interruption in there, but also ineffective community engagement. I mean, I know there's a lot of plans in terms of when we're doing consultations on community councils at the moment. So I just wondered if you feel there's been improvements in the sort of community engagement side through these initiatives. Back just in time, Shireen.
I think it's a work in progress. The work that we have been doing around the communications and engagement with a CLAC consultant certainly will bring forward proposals on how we can improve community engagement. So part of that work will be a community engagement strategy. But there's a lot of approaches that go into how we engage with communities. So not just in corporate services, across all services. And we do have a number of plans in place. A lot of those have been refreshed. So we've got our mainstreaming qualities. We've got a customer charter, which was updated fairly recently. We've got community planning partnership that obviously has a statutory role around community engagement. So there's a lot of work going on. I think there's still room for improving that, certainly from a corporate services point of view. And the community engagement strategy that will be forthcoming, hopefully soon, will be a key part of those improvements.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of work done on the Alliance, hasn't there, in terms of improving the engagement with that and actions?
So the Alliance for Community Planning Partnership's been through, a period of development, I would say, over the past 18 months. Probably we've done some self-assessment. We've done a few development sessions with partners. We have now refined two kind of strategic priorities, which are is enabling or allowing a greater focus on some of the activity that partners want to focus efforts on. And the other thing that we have done is we've brought a paper back to the last Alliance board meeting, which will hopefully be approved at the August Alliance board meeting, which is on revising the structure and the operating arrangements of the Alliance, which will make a number of improvements, streamlining, simplifying and integrating the way that the community planning partnership works. And that's been quite a lot of work to get to that stage, but a number of improvements are planned.
Yes, thank you. Anyone have any other questions? Councillor Harrison?
Just a wee bit, a follow-up to the communications one. So it was last reviewed in 2013, so that's 13 years ago. Communications have massively moved on in the world since then. It was due to be reviewed in 2025, and I know that there's been consultants engaged. Where are we with that? Because frankly, I think we're pretty poor at the communications and the, how can I put it, the miscommunications that are out there in the public, and we don't seem to do anything about that. And those miscommunications just grow arms and legs and get worse and worse and worse. And we're seeing it all the time at the moment. So for me, I think that's something that we really need to be focused on and get that moving, because 13 years from it, if you can think back to 2013, there was way less kind of social media than there is now. So, you know, I think that's something that we really need to be progressing pretty quickly.
Yeah, so would you agree, Councillor Harrison?
Sorry, yeah, would you agree?
Yes, I would agree, and Council obviously approved this transformation piece of work, which has led to both the communications and community engagement element of that improvement, that transformation piece of work. So just on the progress from that piece of work, we do have a draft. We are currently reviewing that with the consultants who have undertaken that work. There was obviously a number of, or quite a wide programme of stakeholder engagement, and Wendy Roberts and I are working with Clark Communications just to refine the draft reports that have come in. So that process is active at the moment and is ongoing. On the changes since the previous communication strategy, you're absolutely right. We have revised a social media policy within that time, but again, I think the timing is necessary that is revised, and that's an action in our business plan. From my point of view, it's not for want of seeking to bring an updated communications plan forward. However, I do think the transformation piece of work and having that kind of independent, impartial view, and also that full kind of stakeholder engagement has been an important part of that process. So we have had a number of iterations of a communication strategy in the interim years. So we have tried to resolve that, but I would absolutely recognise communications and how we engage with communities. They're two different skill sets. It's extremely important. So would recognise the comment.
Thanks, Sheree. So that was 13 years ago. Is there any plans to have it, because it develops so quickly? We're talking about AI. I mean, 5 years ago, that's science fiction. So is there any plans to have that review time kind of shortened, or is it a kind of ongoing thing? Or because it moves so quickly.
Yes, so our strategies, normally are reviewed every 3 or 4 years. I'm not entirely sure what the review period would be. I guess that would be for us to establish that. But yeah, I do take the point. I mean, technology is obviously a massive part. So social media is a massive part of our engagement and communication strategy and way of working now, which is huge. Traditional media is changing and has changed even in the last few years in terms of how we work with them. Even our local media has changed significantly in the past 12 months. So, yeah, plans that are approved by council should have a clear revision date on those. So we would certainly be looking to include that in the plan that's brought forward to council for approval.
Questions? Well, I'm very happy to move this paper. I commend the Partnership and Performance team, who always have exemplary work, I have to say, and I'm very impressed with seeing the progress that's been made within this year-end business plan. So it's always good to see. I've always felt that the team are really good at scrutinising their own performance. So they don't just rest on their laurels and are always looking at ways to improve, as we can see from new procedures being brought in for complaints, like different elements that have been addressed. How can we do this better? The kind of level of equality work that's going on in terms of the teams, and also just the scrutiny that the team have on their own work. I think I would like to take the opportunity to commend the team and the work that's happening, and I know it's not easy. And I know particularly in view of the ongoing stresses and challenges with recruitment and having the right resources, looking at Lindsay when I say that, but it's, it's not an easy process, and often we're sitting here as councillors sort of saying, what are you doing about this or what are you doing about that? Where actually I know you're all working extremely hard behind the scenes to make things work. So I just wanted to move the paper by saying that. So thank you. And can I have a seconder, please?
I would agree with that, yes.
Thank you. Would you like to debate? No? Okay. Will be happy to note the paper? Okay, thank you. More papers. Yeah. And so it's just a couple. So we're now moving on to item 16 on the agenda, Scottish Housing Regulator Annual Return of the Charter, and that, Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Members, the report in front of you is part of our annual update that we give to the Scottish Housing Regulator. It is our annual return on charter that outlines our performance against key indicators that is measured Scotland-wide in terms of providers of social housing. We record this as we deliver our services across the board in terms of our performance generally. It also takes into account the development of our policy agenda, and you will see from section 3.7 in the report the suite of policies that have been updated over the reporting period. This is quite a significant workload for the team, but really important that we keep current in terms of the developments that we are delivering for our tenants. I think it's really important to highlight in terms of section 4 of the report, in terms of some of the key indicators that are there that actually looks at our performance around about safety, around about improvements, and ultimately about how we are managing the housing estate and the homes in which our tenants are living in. I think it is fair to say that our performance has been positive. And if you look at the table in section 4.8, which represents some of our tenant feedback, this is undertaken a 3-yearly cycle. And you'll see that there is minimum movement in that space, in that sense, slight improvements and just minor reductions. I think if you take that in consideration, what's happened over the last 3 years, that is a positive place to be, especially given the fact that we have seen significant impacts on the cost of living, etc., that actually we've been able to maintain good delivery for our tenants. The remainder of the document goes through the various different sections of the report that we need to give into the ARC And I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have in relation to it. I also are accompanied by one of our officers as well. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Councillor Earl, would you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you. On page 284, we talk about the antisocial behaviour. And it's actually neighbourhood and community, but antisocial behaviour has been raised. Can you tell me, when we look at the figures of percentage of antisocial behaviour cases dropped from 82.5 to 77.84? That sounds like a good improvement, but it's still a very high figure for antisocial behaviour. So can you tell me what the management, how the management team are doing about that?
Thank you, Councillor, for your chair. In relation to this particular indicator, it is disappointing that we have had the number of cases carry over. However, some of that is down to timeframes in which we report in terms of open cases. I think there is some more work that we could do within the department in terms of ensuring that we close off the cases in a more timeous manner, because some of these cases will have been concluded but not closed off in the system. But we do recognise the impact that antisocial behaviour has on our residents, our tenants, and in our communities. And there is work that we're undertaking within the department to invest in this area, including additional deployable CCTV that we find really useful, and particularly working alongside our police colleagues in terms of providing evidence as well in that space. All of which will be for the benefit of our tenants. I'm hoping that that's a helpful update, Councillor Campbell.
So I was wanting to ask just on the, obviously the issue with mould, which obviously is something that we're required to address, but I noticed that there's some causes of mould to do with condensation, and there's also other issues, but also it's still mould at the end of the day, regardless of where it comes from. And I just wondered, you know, are we really putting a lot of work into addressing this as an issue, because it's quite significant?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of our actions around ABS law, which has come in, I can say that we've been very proactive in that space. We have employed a permanent damp and mould coordinator to look at that work and add extra robustness in that space. That was put into place prior to ABS law coming into effect, so we were there ahead of the scene. There is more that we do need to do in terms of how we support our tenants in managing some of that, because there will be elements where condensation is part of the cause, and how we help tenants understand how they can play their part around about how we help air circulation, etc., in our homes. But it is fair to say that there's been extensive investment in our properties around about that. That's why some of the timeframes that we have is quite extended in terms of dealing with the damp mould, because we went way above and beyond what would be the minimum requirements, that is required some extensive investment in that space. We continue to deliver in this space, so it's not something that's a one and done. It's something that we will continue to deliver in, and we are dedicating resource within our repairs and capital works teams resource to actually address some of this. So there's a mixture of how we communicate with our tenants in terms of the role that they can play to try and avoid mould developing, and how quickly we then respond in that sense, and having dedicated resource helps us really keep on top of that. So I would see that in terms of the timeframes involved, reducing, and over time as we keep to the quality mark and standard, that's starting to reduce the number of cases as well.
That's good. In our window programme, did we have the wee latches at the top of the window that lets the air in? I'm saying that because I had a team of children who refused to open windows. Seriously, they just won't do it. So it's, so have you got those kind of bits, those I don't know what you call them, I'm sorry, I'm showing ignorance again.
It's just the events that are on our windows, our new window programmes include those kind of industry standards as part of it in terms of that approach. So you will start to see some of that happen, but it still does require people to open the windows to help further circulation in their home as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any other questions? No. So, I mean, I was getting to debate for this, but in moving the paper, I think I'm delighted to see the level of satisfaction with our tenants. I think that's, even though some areas have dropped very, very slightly, it's still a very high level of satisfaction. I'm also really pleased to know that it wasn't just thrown out a questionnaire, people actually went round and asked the question. I think that's really important to get engagement because people just don't answer questionnaires. So it's, and it's quite, although we've got a large housing stock, it's quite a high level that we've managed to survey. And that means that is a high level of people who are actually showing satisfaction, which is great. And also what you've answered in terms of what's been addressed in different areas, I think is really important. So I think it's a really good report. It shows a positive picture. Pleased to see it. And again, congratulations to the team for the good work that's always done. We always get, as councillors, we always get really excellent feedback about housing officers in terms of the work that they do. We get feedback on the speed of response in terms of repairs and so on. So, you know, that's where the levels of satisfaction are coming from. So again, pass on our congratulations to the team for the quality work within this. So thank you. So happy to move. Councillor Benny?
Yes, no problem at all, yes. I've watched them work and how they do things, and everything is done at the highest quality. When you see it in the papers yourself, 96%, you don't get that in housing that's left to the device. So I can't agree more, and it's excellent what they're doing, and I'm sure everybody that has a council house and manager is very much aware of that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mentioned earlier on the problems with antisocial behaviour that still exists. I mean, yeah, there have been some improvements, and there is absolutely no doubt that the housing management team do an extremely hard job, and they should be congratulated for the work that they do. But it's a never-ending problem that they have. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of our tenants who will act in an antisocial manner, and it does upset and at times frighten some of our tenants. But on the positive, I see also that the figure for the arrears is coming down. That's good news in a way, but it's still a high figure. We need to attach that. We need to attack that figure as well. I see from the report that there are tenants there that have recognised their responsibilities, and they're now addressing that, which is good. But we need to do a more rolling programme to try and address this programme, to try and address this problem, because it's money that we need. It's money that housing need. We can't do the improvements if we don't get all the necessary rents and that in. So yes, it's a good report. It's an excellent report, but it could be better. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Anyone else wants to debate? No, so are we happy to note the paper?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, we would normally have taken a break at past, but with one more paper to go. Are members happy to just continue?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So now moving on to Quick Manager Locality Performance Report 25-26 Q4, over to Wendy.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie, and as always, I will endeavour to be so please find in front of yourself, please find in front of you the Locality Performance Report for the Health and Social Care Partnership for Q4 from January to March. This paper represents the activity across the Health and Social Care Partnership and the delegated functions which are sitting within Clackmannanshire Council geography. We have in front of us the priorities which are aligned to the strategic commissioning plan, of which this will be the last report of that previous plan. The plan going forward has updated the key performance indicators in terms of the activity of the Health and Social Care Partnership, which aligns to the refreshed strategic commissioning plan, which was agreed at the end of March 2026 by the Integration Joint Board. There are a couple of things that I would draw your attention to. I think it's worth noting in terms of the people delayed in hospital. We continue as a partnership area to be effective at managing those delayed in hospital and also seeking to prevent people going in unnecessarily to hospital where we can. Our numbers continue, and within this paper you can see that is being managed, that need and demand is being managed by my operational colleagues across the Health and Social Care Partnership. You will also notice that there's a change to our numbers in terms of self-directed support. Our colleague who leads in self-directed support is back at work, having had some absence, and she is back and rearing to go in terms of continuing to roll out the training and continuing to work with colleagues across community health and care services and also into mental health, learning disability and substance use for those who would require a self-directed support package of care, maybe including direct payments. So colleagues within the Health and Social Care Partnership continue to be committed to the delivery of high quality services across the Clackmannanshire locality. As always, happy to take questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Any questions? I think you answered my questions, Lindsay, with your discussion there. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else? No. Okay, so happy to move this paper. I was really encouraged to see the improvement in self-directed support. I think that was going to be one of the questions, but you've covered that off, and I think that is something I've spoken about a lot, and I think that's really important. But also to note the improvement in delayed discharges, I think that's really key. But also, I noticed when I was going through the report across most areas we were noting improvements, which is a positive step. So, yeah, I think it's an excellent report. And again, I know the background work that goes into gathering these figures. It's not just a dry figure. There's a lot of work involved in that. So, very much appreciated. So, thank you. So happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. And as always, I would offer elected members the opportunity to ask for specific data. If you think that would be helpful, we are more than happy to provide. We are basing it on what we think is working well and what we think we may have challenging. But as always, more than happy to pick up areas that members are interested in as part of this process. And you will see going forward, the report will look slightly differently just because of the refresh of the plan. And I spoke to my performance colleagues about the case studies being in quarter one.
Thank you. I didn't mention it because I thought it sounded like I'll just keep saying it, but but yeah, that'll be really positive going forward. Thank you. So happy to move. Can I have a seconder, please? Yeah. Open to debate. No. Thank you very much, Wendy. I'll get to what we're doing with this paper in 2 seconds. So we've to note the paper and continuing work being undertaken across Clackmannanshire and note the performance of Clackmannanshire locality within the Clackmannanshire and Stirling HSCP. Are we happy to note? Yes.
Yep.
That concludes the meeting. We would normally do a post meeting, but with most members not being here, I think we'll just, if everybody's content with that, we'll just end the meeting there. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah.